The Hypnobirthing Toolkit is a complete hypnobirthing and birth preparation course helping you to go into the birth of your baby with confidence and positivity. It's completely self-paced with pre-recorded videos, presentations, audios, PDFs, plus monthly live classes. It's a more affordable and flexible way to learn hypnobirthing and help you have the positive birth experience you deserve. Follow the link in the description below to begin your positive birth journey today. Hello and welcome to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. My name is Ellie Waddington. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, antenatal instructor and positive birth coach, and I'm here to help you go into the birth of your baby with a positive mindset. Every week I share my top tips, advice and amazing birth stories to help you go from fearful and anxious about your birth to positive and confident. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get into this episode. Hey gorgeous mama, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This week I've got another interview for you. I am joined by the lovely Julia, who is a hypnobirthing teacher and doula, and she is talking to us all about her VBAC journey, all about her VBAC birth. And if you don't already know, VBAC means vaginal birth after cesarean. And when you listen to the story, you'll get a real sense of the strength that her strength really shines through as a mother, as a woman, and it's just really lovely to listen to. But I will also just pre-warn you that this story also does highlight some of the flaws, some of the weaknesses within our UK maternity system. And so as you are listening to this story, just have a little think about some of the lessons that you can take away from it. What can you do in your birth prep to sort of strengthen your choices? What can you do to strengthen your mindset? What can you really kind of take away from this story? So without much further ado, here we go. Here's Julia's story. Hello, Julia. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you could just start off by introducing yourself, who you are, where you are, and what you do.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Julia. I am from Baba Doula Services and Hypnobirthing. So I am a doula and a hypnobirthing teacher, as you can tell from the name. I'm based in Leeds in West Yorkshire. Yeah, and I started up my business around about 3 and a bit years ago now. So yeah, I've been going for a while.
And were you a doula first?
I was, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was a doula first, and then I did my hypnobirthing training.
Were we together on the same training
We
weekends?
were, yes. We both trained together, yeah, in the same
Yeah, I
sessions.
was trying to remember that because, of course, in the birth world, we meet so many people and we kind of come across each other in various like training circles and business circles. And I was there thinking, like, where do I know Julia from? Like, did we first meet each other like during the train? We did. We were on that same training call, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
And then we've been in like several kind of clubs together since. So you are here today to talk to us about your VBAC and your journey with that. So if you're happy just to start from the beginning, maybe talk to us about your cesarean experience first and how it went on from there. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so yeah, it basically with my first baby, it was an undiagnosed breech. So it kind of it started where my birth plan was to have a very natural, drug-free vaginal birth. That's all I wanted. And the reason for that was because when I was growing up, my mum would always talk to me about her birth experience when she had me and told me about what an amazing experience it was and basically how it was she sort of advised me to stay at home as long as possible, avoid going into hospital because that is when intervention can happen. And yeah, just basically said her birth was absolutely amazing. And it just sounded incredible. And growing up, I was always quite excited about being pregnant because I actually wanted to experience what labor felt like and what contractions felt like, which probably some people would think is absolutely crazy. But I just wanted to see what my body was capable of doing and to be able to experience that. And, this is what my body was designed to do. So I really wanted to experience that sort of vaginal birth without any intervention whatsoever. So I wasn't like nervous or fearful of my birth. And I was really, really excited and just wanted to have that really magical experience. Um, and when I got to about 40 plus 5 weeks pregnant, so I was overdue, I went to see my community midwife just for the normal appointments. And that morning, I'd felt like I might have possibly wet myself, like as you do once you kind of like get over 40 weeks. Or was it maybe a possible, like a small leak from my hindquarters? So I thought, well, I'm seeing my midwife this afternoon, so I'll just mention it to her and see what she says. And as soon as I got into the room, the first thing she started talking to me about was induction. Um, she was saying, at our trust, we don't let you go more than 10 days overdue. So we will book you in for induction on Sunday. And I just thought, oh no, this is not what I want. This is really not part of the plan. Um, and so I just said, right, fine. She got on the phone, she rang the hospital and got that induction booked in for me there and then. And then she said, how have you been feeling? Have you had any signs that labour might be starting? I said, well, I did have like this sort of possible, maybe my water's broken, maybe I've been leaking some urine. And she said, have you contacted maternity assessment? And I said, well, no, because I was seeing you today. And she was like, right, you need to go straight off to the hospital, straight down to Mac and get checked out. So I thought, well, I really don't think that my waters have broken, but okay, fine. Let's do as she says. Um, I got down there, they examined me and they said, no, your waters haven't broken. So I thought, yeah, I didn't think that they had. And they said, I can see that you booked in for an induction on Sunday. Would you like us to do a stretch and sweep? And it might just be enough to kind of get things going. And I was like, oh, go on then. If it's kind of going to potentially allow me to avoid induction, then fine. So they did the stretch and sweep. And when the midwife did it, she said, you know what, actually, I think your waters have gone. Um, because I can feel hair on the baby's head. And if your waters were still intact, it would feel sort of soft and smooth. And I think because we've done this examination, there's now the risk of infection with your waters previously breaking. So we're going to have to get you on the drip as soon as possible. So naturally, suddenly I go into panic mode. I was really upset. Suddenly my birth plan, this amazing natural birth that I'd been planning for, was completely out the window now. And my blood pressure shot up so high that they had to call in a doctor to come give me some medication to get my blood pressure down. And they just said, we just need to get this baby out. So they took me to delivery suite, got me hooked up to the drip. And I was on it for quite a while and they kept turning it up, and just nothing was happening. Like it was like, can you feel any pain yet? And I was like, no. So I remember 2 student midwives who came into the room and they jumped up on like a filing cabinet that was in the room and they were sat swinging their legs from side to side and just chatting away to me. They're like, so what pain relief are you going to have then? And I was like, oh, I'm not having any pain relief. They're like, oh, well, you're going to need some pain relief because, you're going on the drip and most people will need an epidural. So, yeah, your contractions are going to be really intense, really painful. So you might want to sort of rethink that. I thought, I really don't want an epidural. It's not what I want. And I don't really like the idea of anything like pethidine or anything stronger. So they're like, well, maybe you've just got a really high pain threshold and maybe you'll be fine. So again, I could feel the adrenaline kicking in now. I could feel myself getting really sort of upset and sort of suddenly becoming scared of birth. Anyway, they kept turning up the drip and still nothing was happening. So they said, right, I think we're going to have to kind of do an examination and find out exactly what's going on. And a different midwife came in and she examined me and she said, you know what? I don't think that this is a head. I think it's actually a bottom. So I was like, but the other midwife said that she could feel hair on the baby's head. And she was like, no, this, I'm sure this is the bottom. And And as she did the examination, my waters went like literally proper gush went everywhere. So my waters hadn't actually gone. And so they brought in a scanner, they scanned me and they said, yeah, this is a breech baby. So she was an undiagnosed breech, and it was like, right, we're going to have to take you in straight in for an emergency C-section. And I hadn't done hypnobirthing during my pregnancy, and I really wish that I had, because it was at that moment that I could have really done with some of those hypnobirthing tools and techniques to really help me feel calm. Obviously, I then needed the spinal block, which I was really, really scared of. And then I had to go into theatre and have, emergency surgery. So yeah, if I'd known about hypnobirthing then, it could have really, really helped me deal with that situation. So when I became pregnant second time round, I I was just absolutely adamant that I was not having another C-section. I wanted that vaginal birth that I'd sort of dreamt of first time round. Um, and so I had a consultant appointment. I can't remember how many weeks that I was, maybe something like around 20 weeks, something like that. And they said to me, so I presume you'd be wanting another C-section for this baby. And I said, no, I want a vaginal birth. So they said, oh, so you want a VBAC? I said, yeah. And they said, do you know the risks of a VBAC? And I was like, yes, I still want a VBAC. I said that, yeah, it was almost like my healing birth, really, because I just felt so disappointed that I didn't get the birth that I wanted first time round. And for me, it just it just felt like I'd had a baby, but I hadn't actually got to experience labor. I didn't know what it felt like, and that's what I'd always dreamt about experiencing. Um, so they said, well, we'll give you a leaflet all about the risks of having a vaginal birth after a C-section, and we can discuss it again in a few weeks' time. So I came away sort of saying, I'm still having a vaginal birth. Like I'm not, I'm not having another C-section if I can help it. And then as I sort of approached my due date, so I was about, I don't know, around about 38 weeks, something like that. Well, actually, before that, I decided that because I'd had a breech baby first time round, I thought we're not having another undiagnosed breech. So I insisted on getting a scan at about 36 weeks just to make sure that this baby was head down, because I'd been told at all of my community midwife appointments with my first baby that, oh yeah, baby's head's down, baby's head's engaged. So when they were telling me that again second time round, I was like, well, I don't really believe you. So I thought I need to have a scan to actually prove that baby is head down. So at 36 weeks, they did do a scan and baby was head down. So I was like, right, that's good. And then when I was 38 weeks, I had another appointment with the consultant, and they said, so what are your thoughts on mode of delivery? Are you wanting a C-section because, you would qualify for one, having had one previously? We can get you booked in, get that elective C-section all sorted out. I was like, no, I want a vaginal birth this time. Oh, right. Are you sure? Are you aware of the risks? Yes, I'm aware of the risks. Right. Well, what we'll do is we'll have another appointment in a week's time, and we'll discuss it again, and we'll think about booking you in for induction or a C-section if you want to have a C-section. I was like, I don't want a C-section. I want a vaginal birth. So a few days later, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up feeling again like, have I wet myself or have my waters broken? So I got up, I went to the toilet, and when I sat on the loo, like literally my waters just like came away with a big gush. And I knew this time that it was my waters because I could see like little white flecks in them, which is obviously the vernix that's from around baby, the whiteness that you see on baby's skin when they're born. And so I thought, right, my waters have gone. And I'd been told by the consultant that if I was having a VBAC, as soon as signs of labour started, I had to go straight down to hospital to get put onto the monitor. Again, that wasn't something that I wanted because it was going to restrict my freedom of movement. But I'd said, okay. But it was 3 o'clock in the morning. My daughter was in bed. She was 3. And the childcare that we had for her was my mum and dad, who lived about an hour away. And I thought, and I wasn't in any pain or anything. Like, I don't know where the contractions hadn't started yet, but I just thought there's absolutely no point in waking everybody up at that time in the morning and going down to the hospital just to sit there on a monitor. So I decided to go back to bed and get some rest. And then that morning, James took Emily to nursery, and I called my mum and dad to let them know what was happening. I had a shower, I had some breakfast, and then I decided to ring maternity assessment. And they said, yeah, come on down, we'll check you out and check that your waters have gone. And so I think it was something like 11 o'clock in the morning by the time I actually got to the hospital. I was certainly not rushing to get down there. I was just going to take my time. And yeah, they said, yeah, your waters have gone. So we'll move you up onto the labour ward, and a midwife will come and have a chat with you. So we went into this room. It was a private room on the labour ward. There was very minimal things in it. It was just literally a bed, a chair, a trolley, very, very minimal sort of things in there. And we sat in the room for hours, and I still hadn't had any contractions. I still wasn't in any discomfort at all. And we were just sat there like left to it really, and kept thinking, is anybody actually going to come and see us? I thought I needed to be on this monitor. It was so critical that as soon as I went into labour, I needed to get on this monitor. I could have still been at home. So we decided to go for a walk downstairs, go and get a coffee, just have a bit of a wander about. After a bit of time, the contractions did start to happen, and I did start to feel a little bit of discomfort and what have you. And we went back to the room, and a midwife came to see me. I think it was about 5 p.m. that day. So we'd literally been left all day, and I still wasn't on the monitor. And the midwife came and said, so the plan is that we will move you to delivery suite at around about midnight and get you hooked up to the drip. There was no discussion around, is that what you want? But because of the risk of infection, because my waters had broken, I was on the clock and I had 24 hours basically to have this baby. So I was thinking, oh, again, I really just don't want the induction. And I wish I'd known then what I know now from my training and experience. I know that I could have pushed back and said, I'm not going on that drip. You know, this is how I'm going to be delivering my baby my way, not how you want me to do it. So anyway, it got to, I can't remember exactly right what time it was, maybe about 8 p.m., something like that. And the contractions was starting to come quite strong. And we got out the TENS machine. And then around about sort of 10 p.m., it was getting really, really intense by this point. And a student midwife came into the room, and I said to her, when would I be able to get some gas and air? Because these contractions, they're starting to get really strong. And she just looked at me and just went, oh, sweetheart, you can't have any gas and air until you're at least 4 centimeters.
What?
Yeah. So I was like, oh my goodness. Like, if you don't even think I'm at 4 centimeters yet, I'm really going to have to think about some alternative pain relief, because this is really, really getting intense now. So she said, but don't worry. The plan is at midnight, we're going to get you onto delivery suite. We'll give you an examination. We'll find out how dilated you are, and we could give you some gas and air then. So I was like, right, okay. Shortly after that, she left the room, and I'm still not on the monitor at this point. And shortly after that, I suddenly got this urge to push. And I said to James, I think I need to push. And he said, what? Really? Are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. Like, I need to push. So he said, all right. And I said, you better go and get somebody quick. So he went off and got a midwife, and they came in and they said, oh, I hear that you think you need to push. I said, I do need to push. And she was like, right, okay, we need to examine you quickly. Examined me, and I was 10 centimeters. So she was like, right, can we have a wheelchair quick? And like sort of went pushing me down the corridor. And they were like, we need to get you into delivery suite. Like, try not to push, try not to push. I'm like, I can't. Like, this baby's coming. And I kind of got into delivery suite and yeah, push baby out. I still never got my gas and air. It all happened so quickly. And yeah, it was amazing to have that experience of a vaginal birth, drug free, intervention free. So I was really, really happy, and it was a really positive experience. But it could have been so different. Like, I don't know whether it was my determination that I'm having a vaginal birth, this baby's coming out my way, which was what got things going. But, another few hours and I could have been put onto that drip, and it could have been a very different story. And I could have ended up with another C-section. As we know, that once intervention starts, complications can happen and it just spirals. So I'm just really glad that I stood my ground and said that, I'm having this VBAC. And I never got on the monitor. Everything was fine. And I had a beautiful, positive birth experience. So, yeah.
Wow. And I was furiously like taking notes throughout that entire story. I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry about the sudden like what when the student midwife didn't let you have gas and air because she didn't think you were 4 centimeters. What? Seriously?
Yeah.
Right, my God, there is so much to talk about there, Julia. Thank you so much for sharing that. So it seems like through both of your pregnancies and births, you were consistently being told what to do. You were being
Yeah.
told, we are going to do this, this is going to happen. Like, was anyone at any point asking for your consent or for your views on anything?
No, not at all. It was like, this is the plan, this is what we're doing. And the only time I really got a choice was when they said, they asked me, I presume you'd be having another C-section. And then I said, no, I want a VBAC. So they didn't push too hard. They said, okay, well, here's the risks, your choice sort of thing. But they still, at future appointments, it was still, so you're still wanting a VBAC, or should we book you in for that C-section? It was sort of, they were determined to almost avoid the VBAC. But the crazy thing is that they were going to put me onto the drip, which we know that putting somebody onto the drip and having induction when they've already had a previous C-section, that is more likely to cause the uterus to rupture than just the risk, the possible small risk of infection, for going over 24 hours after your waters are broken.
I know that is absolutely, absolutely nuts, and we know this because it's evidence. Like the studies are out there; they're really freely available. So why were they not being followed? It's like it's absolutely nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah, they were just insistent that I was going to be getting induced because I was getting close to the 24-hour mark.
Yeah.
Um,
That is crazy. And this is why I think our role as hypnobirthing teachers is so important because even like if we can help one woman to advocate for herself and know her rights and know that she is allowed to question things and to say no, then we've done our job. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Something else that really struck me though with your story from the very, very beginning, what I really, really liked, you said that your mum had a really positive birth experience and passed that on to you. That is so rare in the people that I work with and myself and my mum's story and my husband and his mum's story. We're told so many negative things. And I think they were kind of that generation where suddenly like medical care was like freely available for birth. And so it was just being given as a standard. And so we're just all being told these negative things. But for you to have this amazing kind of positive image of birth being passed down from your mum, that's really rare.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my mum had she always told me the story about when I was born, because she stayed at home for as long as possible. And so much so that she ended up going in an emergency ambulance to hospital, because I was nearly born in the ambulance. It was such a mad dash to hospital. And she sort of says like, just stay at home as long as you possibly can, because once you get into hospital, you're then just wired up to machines and you don't have that freedom of movement, and you're getting intervention, and that's when it can all sort of spiral and go wrong. So I sort of took that on board from sort of an early age, and that stuck with me. And
Yeah.
that's why I thought I want to stay at home. But when they said to me, as soon as labour starts, you need to come in to get put onto the monitor, it was sort of like, I thought, well, I'm not going to jump straight away. Well, waters have gone. I'm not in any pain at all. I'm not, why bother going to hospital? Um, Whereas if I had gone straight down to hospital, who knows, would intervention have started sooner? I don't know, but yeah, it's just shocking, really, that.
Well, it is, particularly since they said, right, you need to leave your safe space, you need to leave your home, come to hospital so that we can monitor you. And then you weren't monitored. You were just left to your own devices all day, which actually, to be honest, was probably a good thing.
Yeah. In hindsight, I look back and I think, you know what, if they had kept coming into the room all the time, maybe things wouldn't have progressed the way that they did.
Yeah.
Maybe that was their sort of logic, thinking we'll just leave that lady to get on with it. Or was it because they were so busy that they forgot about me? Because at the time, we were sort of saying, nobody cares, nobody's coming to see us, no one's checking on me, and sort of wanting someone just to come and see us. But in hindsight, it was actually for the best that they just left us alone.
Yeah, so that's definitely a saving grace that was happening.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and to be told that when you asked for your pain relief, which is your right, like just so everyone listening, I'm speaking to microphone now, it is your right to ask for pain relief whenever you want, to then be told, oh no, because you're not 4 centimeters. She didn't know you weren't four
No,
centimeters at that point,
no,
did
I
she? She was
hadn't.
just guessing.
No, I hadn't been examined at all. So nobody knew. But because I wasn't screaming and shouting and sort of showing signs that I was in pain, because basically it's almost like we monitor the level of your labor, how progressed you are, based on how much pain you're in almost. And it's because I wasn't sort of screaming in loads of pain. It's like, oh well, she's not very far on. She's still in early labor.
But how insulting. Like that's so incredibly rude and insulting, isn't it? That's mad, absolutely crazy. And so I don't know if you said this, were you doing hypnobirthing with
No, I wasn't. It wasn't something that, I mean, it was 9 years ago that I had my first, and I don't think it was as big then as it is now. It's something that's definitely growing, and people are able to see the benefits of hypnobirthing. And I really wish that I had done it, because what I know now as a hypnobirthing teacher, those tools and techniques that I could have applied to both my births would have just been amazing. Um, and yeah, just such simple, easy techniques that you can apply to any kind of birth, whether it's a C-section or a vaginal birth or epidural or whatever you're having. It can just really make things so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so at what point did you train to become a doula as well?
Yeah, so that was a few years ago now, and it was something that I've always been interested in, maternity, and I think it was just that calling that I missed when I was younger. And it was only after I'd had my second baby that I suddenly felt like I need to do this. This is sort of calling me. And I started by joining the Maternity Voices Partnership, and I was just volunteering with them, and there was a lot of other people part of the MVP who were doulas, and I'd never heard of a doula before, and they said they were a doula, and I said, "Well, what's a doula?" And they explained and told me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is what I want to do. That's what I need to do." And I sort of came away and I researched it, and I got myself booked onto training to become a doula, because it was just something that I didn't know existed, but
Mm.
something that I knew I really needed to do.
And so how many births have you supported since then? Do you know?
Oh, well, I trained during the pandemic. So that was really, really tricky, because just after I qualified, Obviously, there was the restrictions in hospital where you couldn't have birth partners, and then you could have birth partners, but you could only have one birth partner. So it took a long time to be able to allow sort of second birth partners into the room. So I started off doing a lot of postnatal support initially after I trained. And a lot of women needed that support during the pandemic because that support wasn't available. So,
Yeah.
and then once the world started to open up a bit more, I was able to then get out into the community and so start supporting births.
Oh, amazing. It sounds like such amazing work to do.
It's fantastic. Seeing a baby being born is just the best thing ever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I bet it is. What I'd just like to talk a little bit now is the actual VBAC side of things. So there might be ladies kind of listening to this episode who are toying with the idea of VBAC and they don't know kind of their options and what's available to them and that sort of thing. So if we could just actually describe what a VBAC is, just sort of explain about it to anyone that's listening that's questioning it.
Yeah, so VBAC stands for a vaginal birth after a cesarean. Yeah, it's basically just having a vaginal birth after having a cesarean section. And obviously, it does come with risks. The risks being the scar of where you've had your previous cesarean section could rupture and open, but that risk is so, so small.
Yeah,
It
it's
is,
tiny.
yeah, it is really small, except very often that percentage risk isn't always explained to women, and you're just told that there's a risk. So it's really important to kind of look into what that percentage risk is versus the risk of having another cesarean, because having surgery, major surgery, that comes with risks as well.
Yeah.
And it's important to kind of weigh up your own personal circumstances and establish what is best for you. Yeah, having the birth that you feel is the safest for you and what you feel happier doing.
It's about if you've had a cesarean before, it's about somewhere between a 1 and a 2% chance of having a uterine scar rupture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also important to note that even if you haven't had a cesarean before, everyone has a potential to uterine rupture. Even if you haven't had that cesarean before, like although it's minuscule in people that haven't had a cesarean before, like anyone potentially has the chance of a uterine rupture. It's just slightly increased in people that have had cesarean before. But as you say, it's really important that you do put those risks into context. And what is the risk of infection and things happening with cesarean and the recovery that comes with that. But also something that I talked about on my Instagram a few months ago is that every time you get in your car in the UK, there's about a 3% chance of crashing. So you're actually at a greater chance of crashing your car on the way to the hospital to have your C-section than you would be of like rupturing your uterus scar at
Yeah,
home. And
yeah,
it's just so important that you look at the absolute risk of things and not just think, oh, there's an increased chance, because that's a crazy way to try and make your decisions.
yeah. And people don't, you get in your car and you just drive your car. You don't think, oh, if I go out in the car today, there's a 3% chance that I might have an accident. Like you just don't. You just do it.
Yeah, it's just a part of everyday life. It's just something that you get on with. And so, if you are out there somewhere and you are wanting a VBAC, if you are wanting your vaginal birth after your previous cesarean, don't sort of let yourself be guided into something that's not right for you. Absolutely sort of go with what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for me, it was the best thing that I did because I had my healing birth. Basically, I got to experience contractions. I got to experience labor. I got to allow my body to do what it's designed to do. And it did it brilliantly. And I didn't need any pain relief. So, it just shows what the body can do and what the body's capable of doing without needing intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. And above all else, I think as hypnobirthing teachers, we champion a woman's right to bodily autonomy. In the same vein as, we're here saying, if you want a VBAC, have a VBAC, but at the same time, sort of don't be pushed into that if that's not what you want as well. If you do want the cesarean, that is absolutely your prerogative to have, but do it because it's what you want And because you've done your research and you've made a decision that's right for you, like not because a consultant is handing you a leaflet on the risk of VBACs, you know?
Yeah. And having sort of experienced both a vaginal birth and a cesarean section, they've both got pros and cons. It's I wouldn't say that one is massively better than the other. It was just for me, I wanted that experience of labor. I wanted to know what it feels like. Whereas for some women, it's an absolute no. They don't need to know what it feels like. They don't want to know what it feels like. They would rather have a cesarean section. And everybody's different and everybody's opinions are different. But yeah, they both, I think the biggest thing with a C-section is that recovery afterwards compared to a vaginal birth. I was up on my feet within hours of having my second baby, whereas I was laid up for days and I felt washed out after my C-section. I felt like I'd literally had my inside pulled out and put back in again. So it was a very different experience in terms of that recovery.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a major surgery where you're suddenly expected a few hours later to take care of a newborn baby. Like
Mm,
that's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And it's just you just expect to get on with it.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us today, Julia. I've really,
very
really
welcome.
enjoyed this chat. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and I'm really proud of myself. I managed to get through your entire story with only one outburst, and then you won. What? Like, I don't know if you saw my face, like my eyes. I was like, what? But I'm so so glad that you got your healing birth experience after your emergency C-section that probably wasn't what you wanted, but yeah, it sounded like you had your healing birth experience
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it led to
definitely.
your career and the fact that you are now helping all these other women have their positive birth experiences, whatever they look like.
Absolutely, yeah. And having experienced both, it means that I can sort of support women with whatever decisions they make, whether they do decide to go down the C-section route or whether they decide to go down the vaginal birth route or decide to have a VBAC or whatever. I have that experience where I can support them from personal understanding.
I have this quote on my website where I say like whether your positive birth experience is like an induction with all the pain relief or a free birth in the woods but the light of the full moon, I'm here to support you. And I think you're kind of very much like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a
Brilliant.
positive birth looks different to different people. It's not always sort of the natural vaginal birth as it's often perceived. It means different things to different people.
Yeah, and I think the birth world, particularly if you sort of look on social media, it has become extremely polarized. It's become where, you either have the medical professionals saying like, come into hospital and we'll keep you safe and blah, blah, blah. But then you also have people saying, no, don't touch medical care at all. Go and have your baby entirely by yourself. And I don't think either approach is particularly helpful. I don't think it's particularly helpful to kind of listen to either of those extreme opposites.
Yeah.
I think it's always just a case of do what's right for you.
Yeah.
So
And it's hard though, because you do have all this conflicting information. And when you are pregnant and you're trying to decide what kind of birth you want, and you've got all this information, it can become so overwhelming and just not knowing what to do for the best and not knowing all the risks and things like that. And that's obviously why we're there to support women and help them to make those decisions.
would you now like to talk a little bit about your services and how if people would like to work with you, either hire you as a doula or do a hypnobirthing, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I offer birth doula support. I offer so basically birth doula support would mean that we would have some antenatal sessions together to get to understand what kind of birth that you would like and making you aware of all the different options that you have. It means that I would then go on call for you once you got to 38 weeks of pregnancy and then attend your birth, whether that's at home or whether that's in hospital. Um, Stay with you until baby's born, and then visit you for one session postnatally at home at a time that's convenient for you, usually about a week or two after baby's been born. And we can talk about the birth experience. I can offer you emotional support, physical support, doing any little jobs around the house that just makes your life a little bit easier. Postnatal support, again, that's the emotional support and the physical support, and just listening to you, signposting you to resources. I also offer a package which is an antenatal and postnatal support, and then virtual birth support. So that would be the antenatal sessions. I wouldn't be on call for you from sort of 38 weeks like I would be for the birth support, but I am available virtually. So if you had a situation that came up and you just wanted to ask a question, if you wanted to have a phone call with me, I would be there at the end of the phone to discuss things with you and sort of support you through your birth virtually. And then we would have 2 postnatal sessions with that package. And I also support women who are going through fertility as well. So whether that's going through IVF treatment, so I would support you. I mean, it's a very kind of lonely, isolating period for women who are going through IVF, because there isn't a lot of support out there, because you're not pregnant, you don't have a midwife, you don't have somebody to turn to. And obviously you don't always want to share it with your sort of friends and family that you're, trying to start a family. And having a doula there to support you and listen to you can be really, really helpful. And I support clients who are going through fertility with sort of relaxation techniques to help them to create that positive mind, create that positive mindset. And I think very often, a positive mind can create positive outcomes. So if you go into it feeling positive, you're more likely to have a positive experience. So that's sort of my doula package that I offer. And then there's the hypnobirthing as well that I offer. So I offer group hypnobirthing courses and also one-to-one private hypnobirthing courses. And they can be either online or face-to-face. So I work within the West Yorkshire area for the doula support and for hypnobirthing one-to-one sessions. And my group hypnobirthing sessions take place in a place called Alton, which is in Leeds. And they take place on a Thursday evening every other month. All the details can be found on my website, and you can go on there and you can book on to one of my courses. Or if you'd like to have a chat with me, you can just drop me an email, drop me a message, and we can have a 30-minute Zoom call, and you can just find out a little bit more about what I offer and how I can support you and if I'm the right person for you.
Thank you so much, Julia. Before we sign off, do you have one word of advice for someone out there who's thinking about a VBAC and doesn't really know kind of which way to turn? Sort of what one piece of advice would you give to her?
I would definitely say do your research, and if you can, hire a doula who can support you with your decisions, or hypnobirthing course or an antenatal course, or something where you're going to get support from an expert who can give you all the facts, all the right information, and help you to sort of signpost you to the information so that it'll allow you to make the right decision for you, and that you're going into that birth experience feeling informed and in control and knowing that you're making the right decision for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.